Ciao tifosi bianconeri, hello and welcome to episode 334 of the Turin Giants podcast. I am your host for this episode with just a two-man crew today, myself and Frederic. Frederic, how are you? We are, my goodness, like 15 minutes after the final whistle just blew on Juve-Roma. How's it going, my friend?
I'm exceptionally well. That was a performance that I hoped for, a performance that I was longing for, and I think a lot of fans can agree with me on that. And having that match a good end result and having us, go into a short Christmas break with this perspective is awesome. I think we all deserve this. To be honest, after all the group therapy sessions and the suffering, I think we can gloat for an evening now.
After the Napoli match, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. I'm not going to remember the exact words you used, but essentially you were done. That's it. You're just going through the motion for the rest of the season. Very little expectation. That was such a poor outing from everyone involved and sent us down a pretty dark spiral, questioning everything happening from Elkan to Comoli to Spalletti to the kit man and the people watering the pitch, right? Here we are, 3 straight wins, 2 well-played matches against Bologna and Roma. And dare I say, was that our best match of the season?
I think so. And before we get more into it, because we're obviously hyped and excited, I want to take a minute, to shout out to people in the chat who can join us in this. Yeah, what is it? What should we call this? A glorious moment for us. So they saw the struggles with us. They went through the downs with us. So now it's only right that they can, be in a more festive mood together with us. So thanks all of you for following and joining us here after this wonderful win. And don't forget to like and subscribe our videos, especially on YouTube at Turin Giants Official, because that means the world to us, and we want to see Kevin get his head shaven in Torino at the end of January. So we need to reach 1,000 followers ASAP. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Really, really, words fall short at this moment.
Absolutely. Well said. So as Frederic indicated, we are live on YouTube. So if you are here with us, yes, that live or that like and subscribe means so much to us. If you're catching the video later, we ask the same thing. Thank you. If you're listening to this in audio format on any podcast provider, taking just a moment to reach down, give us that 5-star review would be a lovely holiday gift for all of us. And of course, you can follow us on Instagram at Turin Giants. And we like to continue the conversation there and post a lot of stuff from these episodes and our recordings. And it just, oh man, it feels so good going into the holidays off of the heels of that win. But before we get started, there's 2 things. One, for those of you who didn't catch the session we had with G Just Juve with Uncle Beppe last Thursday, we shared that the 4 of us, Kevin, myself, Frederic, Zach, who's unable to be here today, and of course, Uncle Beppe himself, we will find ourselves in Turin for Napoli Juve at the end of January. And my feet have been held to the fire here a bit. And if we reach 1,000 YouTube subscribers by New Year's Eve, by when the clock strikes midnight, going into 2026, that I will be compelled to shave my head and it won't be the trio of bald guys. It will be it will be a foursome. So we'll see what happens there. The second thing is we're going to talk about this incredible match. I really look forward to unpacking this. But the most incredible thing that happened today was Frederic in our Turin Giants WhatsApp chat complimenting Locatelli, Il Capitano Manuel Locatelli, not once, but twice. So why don't we actually start there?
Yeah, I feel we should. I mean, it's well deserved. Like people seem to think that I'm anti Locatelli just because of the fact that it's Locatelli, but I'm not. I think Luka played a very, very good game. For me personally, the best game I've seen him play in a Juventus kit. And I think the reason is pretty much self-explanatory because Locatelli was very much concentrated on breaking down Roma's play and giving um, more simple passes and not basically trying to build up an attack or having to take a few touches more in order to decide what's he going to do to get an attack flowing. Those were other people that took that from him, that took upon that role. So it was not only Locatelli's credit, but also the rest of the team because everybody was so well organized. Everybody knew exactly what they had to do as in their individual area. And that relieved the pressure from Locatelli into, having to push forward, having to need that extra touch in order to search space or a free teammate, which made him play a lot better, in my opinion. There weren't as many fouls. There wasn't so many risk in his passing. He was very, very well defensive minded, but he also created room when he needed to create room and play the ball in very tight and simple when he needed to. So you could say that was a conservative game in that respect, but due to him playing that conservatively and focusing on what he does best, for me, made him one of the standouts this game. So my hats off to you, Manuel.
I hope we can continue to hear these words from you as the season progresses, because that performance from Manuel Locatelli, who certainly has his critics and is a polarizing figure among Juventini worldwide, I think it's hard to find fault with the performance today. Yeah, a few errant passes here and there, but the aggression going forward, found himself higher up the pitch more so than we've seen throughout the season, and really coming up when needed. And my goodness, if Yildiz had been able to finish off that goal after that run that Locatelli had, and that when he won the ball at midfield, that just would have been icing on the cake.
Especially for me because I predicted on Bepe's show a 3-1 victory, and everybody was like 3-1. You must be drunk, but I really felt confident for this game because, as I said back then as well, if we play the way I think we will play and Roma will play as well, then there's a lot of space for us to take advantage of. And if you have a good game and if you play with the same mentality that we showed at Bologna, then it's only logical that with the attacking line that we have at a certain point in time, you'll get to see those chances, and hopefully you can create some. And in all honesty, I think we could have, should have, and would have scored three today, maybe even four. If I look at what we created as opposed to maybe 2-3 games ago, it's a world of difference because the biggest difference for me was when we played Bologna, it was Bologna who gave us the space. It was Bologna not pressing high enough. It was Bologna that, made some weird running calls into depth and gave us that space. Today was not the same. Everything we did today, we created ourselves just by being organized, being very aggressive, and having that, mentality that we showed against Bologna, but with that, bit of top match atmosphere sprinkled above it, and that made a difference today. So I'm really happy in the way that we came about this result, to be honest. I don't know what your feelings are about, the game as a whole, Kev.
Well, I I mean, my biggest takeaway here is that we've now seen 2 matches in a row where we've played well. We've been craving some kind of impact from Spalletti's arrival, and we talked about this, actually, can't remember if it was with Beppe last week or just after the Paphos game, but we couldn't really judge or make an assessment on Spalletti after those first handful of matches because I think he was really just trying to figure out what he was working with, and you can't really assess or judge him on those series of draws. And now I think we're getting into a stretch where he took ownership and accountability for what was a poor showing in Napoli, where he tried something, it didn't work. The players' performances on the field didn't help him anyway. You saw some adjustment against Paphos. You saw some very good coaching and open play and starting to see the team go a bit more vertically and towards the goal against Bologna. And you saw continuation against of that today. It wasn't a perfect 90 minutes. I think we kind of fell off a little bit, particularly after Bremer came off, and kind of the last 15, 20 minutes was definitely more cagey. And I felt anxious towards the end that we were actually going to give this away. But I think it's safe to say we're starting to see a change in how we play. And if we can continue that into the new year, where we have a string of games that should be much more friendly and forgiving, at least just in terms of quality of the opponent, but all games are difficult in Serie A. It gives me reasons to be optimistic. But why don't we take a step back before we get too deep into the match and just start from the beginning? So when we looked at the starting 11, of course, we had Di Gregorio in goal. We had a suspended Koop Miners and a Cabal who was not called up, we think, as a result of just some fatigue coming back from injury. So we had Kelly, Bremer, and Kalulu across the back. Great to see Bremer back in the starting lineup. Midfield of Cambiaso, Thuram, Locatelli, and McKennie. And then the attacking trio of Yildiz, Conceição, and Openda, who got the nod, ahead of David after the whirlwind of things in the media about David, and maybe we'll touch on that later. But when you saw the starting 11, Frederic, what were your reactions?
I had to say I can't disagree with Spalletti on the starting 11, especially not in hindsight. What I'm not going to say found weird, but found a bit, bold in terms of choice was starting Bremer, because he got some minutes in the Bologna game, and to me, it didn't look as the Bremer we knew. So my concern or my hope was that it was something that was planned, and that it would be Rugani who would fill in for him at some point, so that we could kill two birds with one stone, and getting our ex-injured players getting some minutes in one game is like the perfect solution to a problem that we had, and he did. So it was good to see. It was a good showing of Bremer. I wasn't too happy with McKennie in midfield, not because of McKennie, because McKennie played great, is great, but I felt the last 20 minutes in Bologna seemed awfully tired, and I wasn't sure that he was going to be ready for a game this physical, because I did really expect a physical game, but he proved me wrong. He proved me wrong and played also a great game, and so in hindsight, it's the most logical thing that he did. The Openda David substitution. Well, I mean, David did good the moments that he had when he came in today, but I must say Openda had a great showing. Openda for me, apart from the goal, because the goal, my grandmother, who's been dead for almost 10 years now, could have scored that one too. But the thing that he did, his running lines were so intelligent. The work rate was phenomenal. His first touches at times were mesmerizing, especially the combination play with Kenan. At times, you think that they've been playing together for 5 years or something. So the link up play was very good. I can't fault him at all. I was a bit unhappy that he didn't score, didn't have a chance to score, and then he eventually scored. But he could have had two or maybe even two assists for that matter if he were a bit more clinical in front of goal. But it is what it is. So overall, I think with the gift of hindsight, Spalletti did really well.
Yeah, I think so too, and we'll talk a bit more about Openda as this continues, but making some very nice runs and showing some really intelligent movement, and even without the goal today, which obviously was essential for us to win, still would have indicated that he had a really nice match. I had the same feeling about Bremer. Really concerned that I'm just concerned in general about rushing him back. And you can see the night and day difference of what this team looks like when he's out there and when he's not just through his individual performance, but I think the whole team collectively just feels more confident with him in the back, and just everybody else gets just a little bit better when he is back there. And with him going off, it's no surprise to me that the level of our intensity dropped down, and we did ultimately end up conceding. Um, so I think all in all, a very reasonable starting 11. I actually think Spalletti was. I think Openda was a good fit for this match. With this was not Roma's uh, first choice starting back line. I mean, they have an injury, and one of their top players is out at the AFCON tournament right now. And so having somebody who has a bit of pace and can break that down, I think was very smart. But also after all the kind of, I don't even, is drama even the right word, but all the media attention around David this past week, which reached its climax with a Spalletti stroke of genius in his presser yesterday. And if anybody missed this, we're going to highlight this here for a bit. So I think if everybody's been following the news about David, who's a very introverted person coming from a very different culture, getting situated in a new place with a new team. And we know it's a relatively immature team that doesn't have the mental strength of Juve's of yesteryears. But rumors that he's been excluded from the players, is not sitting in the locker room as well, and has not been invited to certain dinners. And Spalletti I think just put this whole thing to the side by indicating, yeah, he wasn't invited to a dinner, because in the first one he went out to, he put Parmigiano Reggiano on his spaghetti alla vongole, which is spaghetti with clams. And if any of you are unfamiliar with that, you're breaking a cardinal rule of the Italian kitchen by putting cheese on a seafood pasta. And if that is what he did, then he deserves to not be invited. Obviously, it's certainly a joke, but just trying to put that chapter of media attention behind everybody. But
Can we
I just thought that was
can we
hysterical.
can we take a moment to appreciate the genius that Spalletti is in that regard, and in all regards? Because um, I remember me saying that, and a lot of people as well. Oh, Spalletti needs to, the four-man back line. He needs to blah 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 blah. But he did what he needed to do, and gradually turned this team into a proper team. And I think that was his main objective all along, at least for this first half of the season. And he's doing that very successfully, because not only, I mean, it's easy to say when you get the results in and whatever, but if you looked at today, the happy faces all through, especially after that final whistle, the amount of hugs and cheers and grinta and what, all the superlatives you can think of, they showed. And I think the first time this season we were happy-ish, against Bologna when we won, but you could actually see that this was something they were all, working for and working towards as a team, as a unit. And the thing that pops into my head was, I think when Chico missed that chance, you saw Jonathan David, who was ready to be subbed in, grab his head like, oh no, And for me, that's a good thing to see. That's a very good thing to see because we've come a very long way, and I think we're finally, gradually finding our way and our steps. And I think we have Spalletti to thank for that, in all
Yeah,
honesty.
I think so too. And our friend here, Mohammed 1997 Ali in the chat, just Spalletti broke it with a joke and buried the subject. And I hope we never have to talk about David isolation in the locker room for the rest of the season. And we're on a path to having a more unified team. Something was off there for a bit. We don't know how much truth there was in this exact uh, with this exact situation, but I did see a happy, cohesive team today, showing a bit of unity, and I hope that's something we can continue with. So as we got into the first half, it just what were you feeling like 10 or 15 minutes in? Just observations on how we were playing, performances of individual players.
I thought we were playing fairly well, but I had a bit of a. The players that bucked me at that time were a bit Cambiaso, because Cambiaso did what Cambiaso always does, or mostly does, not to take anything away from him, especially in the second half. But I felt he was a bit sloppy, not focused, deconcentrated. I don't know the correct term. And Chico, because I think we spoke about that in our private chat too. I think
Mhm.
Chico is, at times hit or miss. And we've been clamoring about this level of consistency that we demand from him, and it was nowhere to be seen in the first half. And I think that even Spalletti raised his voice at Chico and Yildiz too, for them not being. I think he said something like Svelja, like wake up, because they were just not in the game as they should have been. And my comments didn't age well in the chat, because lo and behold, not even, what was it? I think 10 minutes later, around the half-hour mark, I think, maybe something a bit more further, we get to see that lovely goal that we created. So, but the player then already was Locatelli, because I made a sarcastic comment because he made the first mistake around the 20-minute mark, I think.
Mhm.
Um, and I made a sarcastic comment in chat, but all this time you could see his work rate, his stellar performance against a Roma that, we can downplay it all we want, but Roma hasn't drawn this season yet. A very cohesive team, a very Gasperini forged team, especially defensively. Yet we succeeded in embarrassing them at times in terms of counterattacking or even mentality and pressing. So that for me was a sigh. I actually had a sigh of relief, because I actually felt that this game was going somewhere. So I was very happy when we eventually scored. But I think we were, I mean, you and me were a bit critical about certain players at the beginning, I think, Kevin. I don't know who stood out for you
I
in
thought
terms of.
Kalulu was sloppy in the first part of the first half. There were some clear passes that he misplaced or held on to the ball too long and got caught out of possession. Looked a little shaky. Um, but look, we were. I think just we've been understandably so conditioned to be pointing out some negativity that we're seeing, and you're never going to have a half of football generally where everybody's kind of 5 out of 5 and everything's going well. All in all, that was a pretty good first half. Even if we hadn't scored, which we needed to, I would have felt good going into the second half about how we were playing against a top four opponent at home.
Yeah, I agree. But to me, it felt like, especially just, I think, moments before we scored, I had some flashback in terms of, can we create anything other than the chance that we saw from, Openda in that first half? Because that was a glimpse of what we can do with that through ball. I think it was Catherine that gave him that through ball, which we can do if we keep high pressure and we dive into spaces intelligently. Then we were able to play football, create chances, and we didn't do that. We played a bit how shall I put it, a bit tame at times. I felt that we could really hurt Roma, but for some reason we were a bit, shall I say, overwhelmed or too respectful towards Roma. Especially with the little fouls that they made. It felt like we were intimidated at certain points, and then that goal changed everything, and
It
we
did.
saw very more compact, aggressive,
We came out
and
firing in the second half.
confident Juventus. Yeah,
Yeah.
confident
Yeah.
Juventus. And I think for Spalletti, this was like a golden moment to score because he could take that enthusiasm into the dressing room with him and fire him up for the second half. And in all honesty, I think that's the main difference between previous games where we used to sacrifice like a whole half of football playing like rag dolls. And now we were, I think, for 70% of the match, firing from all cylinders with intensity and mentality.
Yeah, it was a very positive first half. I think when we were looking ahead to this match last Thursday with Beppe on the shared cast with Gigis Juve, I think we were kind of split and didn't know if this would be a very tactical conservative match with two sides sitting back, trying to wait for somebody else to make a mistake and not wanting to concede the early goal, or if we would see two teams go at it. And given that it was a Gasparini side that generally plays attractive football, that goes for it, but has been very defensively organized so far this year, and us with a little bit of a positive run of play, wanting to be proactive, go after it at home, go into the holidays with that win behind you, being 1 point away from top four. And it ended up being just that, with two teams that were trying to play, trying to play proactively. And I think that did serve us well. I think Gasparini probably made a mistake in hindsight with the false nine and Dybala. He had some nice little moments of play, and if there wasn't that deflection on his shot, would that have found the bottom corner? I don't know. But he needs a reference point, and that did not work. That did not work.
For me, Dybala, and I love Dybala with all my heart. He gave me so many moments of joy. I mean, I'm forever in his debt. But this was a shadow of the Dybala we know, even the Dybala we've seen in our last season with us. And I think after the amount of injuries he had, I think it's fair to say that the level now, albeit standard basic level, which the Serie A is a bit too high for him. And he's playing in a team that doesn't match his qualities and playing with a coach that loves a number 10, but also demands a lot of things that a number 10 shouldn't be able to do.
Mhm.
Gasperini's number 10s always have to defend back, always have to, hop back into the middle, receive the ball, make the play from midfield. That's something Prime Dybala could do, but that's not something that the Dybala at this point can do. So you're over asking Dybala to perform, and that just doesn't work. And you could tell as well that he was very frustrating, and I thought it was very nice when he got subbed that we gave him a standing ovation for everything that he's done. And I think you could see that he was also very emotional. And I just wanted to use this to, jump into the segment of the rumors of Dybala rejoining Juve potentially. Like I said on Thursday, I don't think
There's
this
n-
is a good
it's
idea.
no, it's
I
not a good idea, and that backed up by our dear friend of Turin Giants, Colo99, in the YouTube live chat here. Dybala needs to head to Argentina and enjoy his twilight. I tend to agree. I mean, he's just not putting out the same level of performances that we have loved to expect from him, whether he's wearing our shirt or not.
agreed.
So we go into the second half. Well, let's break down the goal, right? So right before the goal, we saw a nice buildup of play in which Chico missed his opportunity. I think some of us would have liked to have seen him take that first time, although that may have been very tricky given where his feet feet placement was at the time. Uh, we get the corner, I think, and then after Openda strikes the rebound and goes off of a Roma player, we get the corner, ends up with the keeper, and the players that we had been critical up to at that point, namely Cambiaso not having the best of first halves, but ended up, I think, ultimately played one of his better games in hindsight. And then Chico, I think, was wasteful in possession at times. But Cambiaso comes up with the ball off of goalkeeper moving it upfield, plays it into Chico, who plays it to Yildiz, who plays it back to Cambiaso, who had received the ball at midfield in the center circle and had made the run into the box to receive it back from Yildiz with that beautiful one-time touch for Chico to finish that off. So definitely one of those moments of like open mouth, insert foot, but was so glad to see that play get finished off.
Yeah, true, and that's the moments that of genius that Cambiaso has, and makes him well regarded in football circles because he does have those moments. We were just unfortunate to see him in a period where he didn't have a lot of these moments and had a lot of unconcentrated ones. And if we have a Cambiaso in our team that is not focused and not confident, then we're playing with 10. If we have a Cambiaso that is 50, 60, 70% of the level that he can achieve, then we have good value for money there. So it's again the consistency, and this is key with a lot of players such as Cambiaso, such as Chico, maybe even Turam, who also had a very good showing today, I think. And once we can reach that level of consistency or have it to be a bit more stable, then we're capable of pushing out these kind of performances and results. And once again, I want to commend Spalletti for that because Spalletti already knew before he started that he needed to do this gradually and lay the foundation of something, which would be the team mentality, the effort, the vibe, so to speak, in order to raise the other or diminish the other question marks surrounding the team. And we're seeing that now because I think a week or two ago I said we're starting to see the hand of Spalletti, and it's beginning to get more obvious with every game that we see. And I think this is a very positive evolution, especially with regards to what we witnessed in the past. So yeah, it helps the team. It helps the players individually. It helps us because we don't have to moan and cry on camera now. So that's a good thing. So all in all, I think this is an intersection which we took deliberately, where Spalletti is driving the bus, but has a clear vision of where to go and how to get there. And I think this is already a big step forward for Juventus as a club, given our past track record.
So we move into the second half. The goal couldn't have come at a more perfect time just to capitalize and go in on a good half of play, go into halftime with momentum, with energy. And we saw Juve come out in that second half, as mentioned already, playing in a way that I think we've known that we're capable of, but haven't been able to do it with any kind of regularity. Just how did could you believe your eyes at a certain point of what we were doing, the movement, the proactiveness, the verticality, actually being able to finish off progressive movements of play with attempts on target or at least better final balls?
It was a sight for sore eyes in a good way because normally my how shall I put this? Lately, when Juve starts the second half or first off, I need like 5 minutes to get in because I know like most of the time it's going to be dramatic, right? We start sloppy, unconcentrated, not well organized, whatever. And it was getting to be a bit of a habit, even for me behind my TV screen. And now I just, I saw them firing from all cylinders. And it was very clear to me that Spalletti, because you could see Spalletti was infuriated after the first half because he expected a lot more. and you could tell that he kicked some ass in the dressing room, so to speak. And for a mentally fragile team, that would have been the death stroke, because if you tackle a very fragile team halfway when they're up, then it all turns to shit. But
Mhm.
you could tell, because of the fact that he did that, he knew that this team has grown a bit, so he felt comfortable in doing that. And lo and behold, with a very positive outcome, we played very well, very fast, a lot of high press, a lot of intensity, a lot of caginess, and duels, aerial ones, on and off the sidelines and whatever. And that was what the match needed for us in order to turn things around. Because if we were to play very conservative and tame, then at some point Roma would have gotten the upper hand, but we didn't let him get the upper hand. And I feel that, once again, hats off to Locatelli as well. It was a lot of him doing that and spurred on a lot of people that were in need of a quick boost. So hats off to him tonight.
Yeah, and then we saw some changes, right? Chico coming up with a hamstring issue, and Bremer, who we believe at this point that this is just fatigue. I'm looking right now live to see if Spalletti's comments have been posted yet. I'm seeing some things from Gasparini, but not Spalletti
No, it's
yet.
it's it's just fatigue. It's just fatigue,
Okay,
and he started to feel kind of like cramping issues a bit, which is normal after the injury and having,
sure.
put in the minutes at this
He didn't
intensity.
seem to be limping, so
No, no, no. And somebody from within Juventus told me that it was a planned sub as well. It was planned to happen 5 minutes later, but we couldn't finish that 5 minutes due to some cramps, some discomfort, and maybe a bit of fatigue. So Spalletti deemed it wise to have him sub straight away, which did contain some risks, I have to say, because we
yeah.
saw
No,
the
I'm
difference
I'm glad that that
when
happened.
Bremer went off. But and I like the fact, because I didn't mention this already. I like the fact that Spalletti confused a lot of people, or surprised a lot of people, especially Gasperini, because I think a lot of people thought that Juventus were going to try to control the game, and we were in for a nil-nil kind of boring ass game without any tempo. And Spalletti pulled out all the stops and made it very clear that he wanted to win this game, as I said on Thursday. Um, and I think Gasperini, tactically, in the second half, at least the first 15 minutes, didn't have any response to that. And he started, panic subbing, as I call it, because you put in Leon Bailey, who's a very talented player. I saw him play in Belgium for quite a while, but you know that he's just not ready for the job at hand after his injury. And out of sheer panic, decide to put him in to maybe get that individual spark that was lacking, but to no avail, because he was subbed off later. So I think we had him in the ropes at that moment, and then scored our second goal after Edan came in, which for me was felt liberating. I don't know how you felt, Zach, but it was one of the first times maybe in years that I screamed out, not out of rage, but out of joy. So for me, it felt very liberating. I don't know what went through your mind when we scored that second goal.
Well, first of all, you are so used to talking with Zach as your partner in crime here. You just referred to me as Zach, but that's okay.
I'm
I'll
so
take.
sorry. I'm so sorry. The only like
It's just muscle memory. It just rolls off the
for
tongue.
for the last couple of nights, I was even surprised that I didn't call my wife Sag, because of all the things we did together. So, not meant personally or in any way, shape, or form, but
No, 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 no. I
it's
take
it's
no offense. I just for those of you who maybe don't frequent all of our content, who are or who may be new to Turin Giants. I mean, we're so thankful to have you here with us, whether on YouTube or listening in audio format on podcast. But Frederic and Zach have a couple of kind of unique uh, pieces that they put out in series within the Turin Giants umbrella. They have one focused purely on transfer market news called The Scoop. and an episode just dropped this past week, focused on a lot of interesting rumors and developments heading into the January transfer market. And they've also just released a new one called It's Black and White. Frederic, why don't you preview what's going on in that new one that just got off the ground?
Yeah, thank you so much for the shout out. Well, in the new one, which will drop Monday or Tuesday, we discuss certain issues within Juventus as a whole, and because Zach and I like to discuss things and argue and throw things at each other, we decided to do that virtually in a virtual YouTube boxing match where we try to, just discuss the things that happened in a pro and contra stance and try to convince each other that one of us is right in the end, but we let the audience decide and we also let the audience pick out the subject. So I'd really love it if you guys would have a look on our Instagram page or on the YouTube channel and comment which discussions or topics you would like to see discussed. And as for the scoop, um, we did one. We're gonna do a couple more, and I think that in January we're gonna be very active. So I'll guess I'm gonna call you Zach for a while now, if my muscle memory at 42 years of age still works. So apologies in
No,
advance, my good
not
friend.
at
But
all.
we're trying our best for the people and for ourselves because we obviously enjoy it. And you do too, Kev. So thanks for the compliments that we always
Yeah,
get from
no, I
you.
mean it's fun, right? I mean, obviously a part of the Turin Giants crew here, but it's also just fun as a listener, right? To listen to some of the content that I'm not a part of or just am unable to contribute to. So it's really great. But you had asked me just what was going through my head after that second goal, and so many things went well for us there. We've been horrible at crossing the ball throughout much of this season, either very poor crosses or to nobody or not aligned in the box in the right way, or it's just a last ditch effort with it was never going to materialize into anything of note. Zagrova's placement was perfect. Uh, and with a Openda who is not the tallest person on the field by any means, right? He wants the ball played at his feet or into space so he can make use of his speed and dynamic ability. So crosses to him aren't going to be the best use of an attacking play. And so finding McKennie, who is one of the few players on the attacking part of the pitch who can do something with that, perfectly placed ball. McKennie strikes it very well. Maybe on a different day that gets past Svilar, but Svilar is a great goalkeeper. Manages to keep it out. Unfortunately, finds its way right back to McKennie, who gives it to Openda, who it would have been harder to miss that than to make and complete that play. So just the play was great. I was happy for the hockey assist for Zagrova, was happy for McKennie continuing what has been a really nice period of form for him. And then Openda getting the confidence boost and just a nice cap on a really nice evening for him. And ultimately it was needed. 1-0 wasn't going to be enough. We needed that goal.
Yeah, and also I want to highlight Openda's contribution because we can speak volumes about the pre-assist that Chigova crossed in, which was an awesome cross. If you look, that's a cross you can look at 20 times in a row because of its sheer beauty, the trajectory, the speed, the curve. It was all just down to perfection. McKennie handling it very well, but credits to Openda for staying around, in that center point at goal because that's striker's instinct as well. A lot of strikers would back down a bit just on the edge of the box, expecting to receive another ball in, be it vertically or whatever. But it was credits to him for standing there, and credits to McKennie also for having the vision to see Openda there, because in such a chaotic moment, it's very normal that you lose overview at a certain time. But he didn't pass the ball wide, and Openda scored the goal of the year. Not in terms of beauty, but it was something that we haven't seen a lot this year, with the cross coming in and being very, very dangerous on that. So yeah, it was nice, and I think we were all jumping with joy. Chat was lit, as they say. So happy for that. Yeah.
So we actually do have some comments, some post-game comments from Bremer, and there was a comment here from our buddy Del Piero. 109, is Bremer okay, or is it an injury? I mean, we were talking about that not too long ago, that we're pretty confident that it's just fatigue. And Bremer has made some post-match comments. I had this nasty injury, referring to what he had previously. But I've been working with the team for 2 weeks and knew I had to be called or had to be ready when called upon. I wasn't able to play the whole game, but we had expected this, right? He's not making a comment about an injury. He's making a comment that, hey, I was there to play. I did my part. We were
Was
expecting that I
planned.
wouldn't put
Yeah.
in a full performance. And I think that went according to plan. And then goes on to comment about Spalletti. The coach is very demanding, which is only right, as we are Juventus and must always want more. He is a good coach, giving us a lot of information. We are playing more with the ball, and you can see the results, which is actually interesting because we only had around 40% possession today. But man, did we do so much more with it while in possession. And I've made this comment on so many episodes and YouTube lives around my, not disgust, that's too strong of a word, but my frustration when we do have possession and we make it up to the final third slowly through meticulous passing, and we have no clue what to do with it. And we just hold on to it outside of the box or kind of in the corner of the box. And you have Kalulu passing to McKennie, passing to Conceição, back to McKennie, back to Kalulu, maybe back to Locatelli, back to Kalulu. And we just go on and can't do anything with it. We just get stuck. Today, there was barely any of that. We were vertical. We were pressing. We were playing through Roma's lines. We were moving forward. And if we didn't lose the ball in possession by either someone there was a good tackle, they took a bad touch, or it was a misplaced pass, or we were making an attempt on goal and we were just going for it rather than just moving our way upfield and just getting stuck in possession without any outlets or people making intelligent runs or having a clue of what to do with it. That was very refreshing.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is as well that it didn't feel like we had little possession in terms of percentages, because when we had it, we were always dangerous. We were always snappy. We were always going forward. So in hindsight, it looked as though we were dominating, and we were dominating not in terms of possession, but in sheer aggressiveness and sheer attacking mentality, and being very dangerous and snappy when it mattered. And I think this was not only your gripe in the past; it was also mine and a lot of people, because that dragged the game on so much, and we neutered ourselves, because you can't be dangerous if there's no pace in your game, if there's no level of surprise, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm glad to see that Spalletti is somebody who feels the same, because this doesn't happen overnight or by accident. This is something that is very much ingrained due to, by training, by getting those snappy 1-2 plays in, by coming out of your own box with explosiveness, with a counterattacking ability, with moving the ball forward rather than pushing it horizontally. And it's a gradual effect, and I'm happy to see that it's evolving in this way. To be honest.
I am too. And our buddy Zach, who was not able to be with us, wanted to make sure that we could answer a key question here. So if we go back right to prior to the Napoli match, where heading into the holidays, we were staring down the barrel of away to Napoli, a must-win Champions League game against Paphos, and then two matches against top four contenders away at Bologna, which was always going to be a tricky match, and then home against a very resilient and defensively sound Roma, who, by the way, have not conceded 2 goals in any single Serie A match yet this year, and only once so far this season in one Europa League match. So this was meaningful for us. So the question here is, we started down looking at Napoli, Pafos, Bologna, Roma, mostly predicting doom and gloom, but we had 3 out of 4 wins. So the question is it time to throw away the old script of this team and grant ourselves a bit of optimism for what this year can bring? How are you feeling,
No,
Frederic?
no. I was optimistic because I predicted the win against Pafos. I predicted, I think, a draw against Bologna, and I predicted a win against Roma. So I was feeling optimistic, but that's also due to the kind of messages I get from within Juve and how the training is going and what Spalletti is doing. So I was a bit more confident in that respect, especially in terms of results. But we have to keep in mind that we're still a fragile team, and we've been riding a wave of enthusiasm that we created because the Paphos game for me was the game where a little spark happened because we're virtually placed for next round in Champions League. I mean, a lot of things can go wrong. I don't expect them to, but we got in a must-win game that sparked a lot of confidence. But there are two faces on the medallion at this point, and I think we can be optimistic all we want, but it's up to the team to perform. Because if you now go and play Pisa and you say, it's just Pisa, I don't feel, motivated or hyped, and you get caught off guard, then the win against Roma amounts to nothing. So once again, the keyword here will have to be consistency. And I think in order to get consistency, we just need, a couple of more wins in so that winning becomes a habit again. And once you're in that kind of flow, and maybe you can even alter the team a bit or strengthen it in the January transfer market, then you're on to something. But I think for now, we kind of grassing over the fact, we have easy games coming up. There's no easy game for us this season. It's not going to be this season that we can, talk about a guaranteed win. We're too fragile for that. So we have to just look at it one step at a time, see what we can do. I'm very confident because I think optimistic is the wrong choice of words here, but I'm confident of what we can do. But it's on them to do it eventually on the pitch. And I just hope that Spalletti will keep, holding the reins in that regard and keep pushing us forward and just ride out January and February, see where we stand, and then maybe adjust our objectives. I mean, why not? Objectives are not set in stone. They can always be altered, especially when moving upwards in an upwards trajectory. So I just feel that we need to be very clinical in the months of January and maybe the first half of February. And then I think we can draw some conclusions as to where we stand or where we should be or where we should be heading. But I'd be a bit more cautious, albeit a bit more confident.
So for you, confidence doesn't equal optimism?
No, I know it's a bit of contradictory, but you can have confidence, but you don't have to be optimistic in the sense that if you're optimistic, especially within the squad itself, and if there's that good vibe and you kind of get laid back for a bit and you get caught off very, very soon. So I'd say like, let's put the work in practice and whatever we do, and just start every game afresh and start every game with the the sense or the realization that we are the ones that are going to have to win this game. And I think the team can do that. I honestly think they can. But starting a game with a certain mentality and in a certain state of mind is very different from finishing the game in in the same state of mind as well. So we're gonna have a lot of games that are gonna be kind of a little battle where a lot of teams will try to use our strength against us, and we'll have to be mentally ready and tactically ready to be smarter than them, outsmart them, and outplay them as well. I'm confident we can, but I'm not optimistic that it's going to happen every game. We'll struggle a bit from time to time, and it's the way that we respond to those struggles in and off the pitch that are going to define our season.
Well, let me phrase the question a slightly different way. So we know, let me pull this up here. The string of games we have coming up. Hold on one second. So 2 days after Christmas, we're away at Pisa, then home against Lecce, then away against Sassuolo, who have been playing the role of kind of giant killer recently. They've played some nice matches, and then home at the Cremonese, away at Cagliari, and then we have tricky matches, but both home against Benfica and then Napoli to round out the month of January. So before Benfica and Napoli, all sides that are outside of kind of top six, top eight, right? So
Yeah.
in theory, teams without quite as much quality, but certainly capable of doing damage to any side, as we've seen so far in this very tricky campeonato. But if I were to ask you the same question, how do you feel going into that particular string of 5 games? If I had asked you that question after the Napoli match versus asking that question now,
Yeah.
how does your answer change?
It's a very good question because I think that we've grown a lot, especially mentally, since that Napoli game. Looking back in hindsight, I think the Napoli game did wonders for us as a team. Was a bit of a tipping point in the sense that everybody was fed up. Everybody kind of gave up. And I'm not sure what Spalletti did at that exact point, but it's, the numbers don't lie. We turned it around since then. So, with regards to that, I'm confident. But like you said, Sassuolo is the giant killer team. We have Pisa, and Pisa, I think they won or drew against Milan. I'm not sure. I think they drew or they won. I can't remember. Also had a very good game against Atalanta. So
Yeah,
these are not
Pisa drew
opponents to
against
underestimate.
Milan and Atalanta. Our buddy
Okay.
Mazmiv in the chat here, keeping us
Thank
on
you,
our
Mas.
toes.
Thank you, Mas. So these are games that you need to focus on game by game, and you need to be sure because we had game open games in the sense that Bologna played their games, left us a lot of space. Roma today wasn't afraid of going into the attack as well. If you play against Pisa at Pisa, and at a certain point in the 70-minute mark, it's still 0-0. Then you'll have a Pisa saying, "Hey, it's a point against Juventus. Let's all get into the penalty area and hope for the best." And then you push Juventus into difficulty because creativeness and free attacking flow hasn't been our forte this season. So we can only adjust that by a very good mentality and aggressiveness. And it's very difficult to put the same mentality as we saw today at a night game at home, filled up stadium, a lot of hype around the game, to put that on the pitch against a 12:30 game against Pisa, for instance, at Pisa.
Mhm.
So these are things that are of much influence to our young and mentally bit fragile team. So I'm very curious to see how we respond to that.
I mean, I will say, I, I I understand what you're saying. That you're feeling you have a little bit more confidence, struggling to use the word optimism alongside of it. Like, I get fearful that optimism can turn into arrogance, especially within the players. And I know I'm just trying to speak for my own sentiment here, but I am more optimistic that Spalletti's having an impact in that he's changing something within these players, not just in their mentality and approach to the game, but actually the product that we're seeing on the pitch. And we saw a performance today that under, unfortunately, Tudor, I don't think we would have seen. Right, I don't think the players were capable of playing in this way, or him instructing and getting his message across in the right way. So that is encouraging, and that gives me optimism that something is changing. Right, but this Juventus team and this squad and this whole club has conditioned us to kind of expect the worst, I think, and that any moment of positivity is very fragile, and it just takes a slip up away against Pisa with too much holiday panettone in their stomach, showing up there and putting in a flat performance and drawing or losing, and those points that you won against Bologna and Roma are less and less valuable because you're slipping up against
Yeah,
the provincial sides. So
yeah.
agreed, we just have to approach this sounds so cheesy, and I'm sorry I'm going to say it, but approaching each game like it's a final, right? You just have to at this point.
At
I
this
mean, there's
point, you have to because well, it's clear we need to cling on to that fourth spot. And I've seen a word that scares me a lot pop up in the chat: Scudetto. In no
mm,
way, shape, or form are we a Scudetto contender for now. Let's talk we've passed Valentine's Day, see where we stand, what we did, who we attracted in terms of transfers, and what we actually can do. But for me, it's very clear that with all its flaws of the squad and this team, fourth place is the minimum that we can ask for. And we've shown that today. We've put pressure on ourselves because we've shown that we are capable of putting in these kinds of performances. But this has to be or has to become the norm. So this is a very critical point for a team where they're on the uprise, but you need to confirm game after game after game. And then after a while, you can look at, what's next for us in terms of the season. And I think we all know and expect that we won't win the Champions League, we won't win the Scudetto, but that doesn't mean we don't have to try. We owe it to ourselves, they owe it to the fans, to the people that support them to do that. But in saying that they will do that and doing it is a whole different matter because there are so many factors that can be very decisive, whether it be a suspension, an injury, a locker room brawl, or what have you. Um, so take it game by game. Don't look too far ahead. See where we go, see where we get, see that we can get some points in, that we get some confidence in, and back off the media a bit because the media are very harsh on Juventus, I feel, for a reason in terms of
mhm.
highlighting everything that goes wrong, which has always been the case, but to our favor, not much went wrong, uh, you know, a few years back. So now we're on the turning point of that, and it's up to the manager, the players, and especially the management team to just put the pressure off the guys and make sure that we prepare for every game with the right mentality, and the results will follow because if you can score twice to a Roma team who barely conceded this season, then you can do a lot of things. But like I said, between saying it and doing it, there's a huge difference. We just need to make sure that we're in the right headspace to put those performances in game by game.
Yeah, completely agree. So as we move into kind of closing out this episode, so I want to talk about our top players of the match, and then get to any last questions here that we may have overlooked. So Frederic, in our tradition, we give our
I have a very big testicles. I
so
have a very
who
big.
So who showed that performance today for you? Who was the big balls player of the match?
Don't make me say it.
It's a
You
tough
gotta make
one.
me say. You
It's
gotta
a
make me
tough
say it.
one. Yeah, you're going first.
I can't choose two, can I?
No, just one. We can give some honorable mentions at the end if you want.
I'm gonna go for Locatelli because I've bashed the guy enough, and it's only fair that I give him his roses once he rises to the occasion. At least for me, because this is like just my honest opinion. And for me, Luca was the cement that held us together. This game, whereas a lot of games for me, he was our weakest link. He turned that around for me today. Was the cement, the glue between defense and attacking. Was the how shall I put it? The example of wanting to win, and that was so contagious for other players. And I think
really
maybe
saw
even
that in him today. You
yeah.
really did. You really did.
And I think unintentionally, even he fired up a lot of other players because I'm used to seeing this tame and slow, kind of turtleish Locatelli in terms of football quality. But today he was a lion. And, coming from being a turtle to becoming a lion for me, I
Or just
mean,
like the suit wearing, like, gentleman guy to
yeah,
showing a bit more tenacity, right? And, like,
yeah,
getting
yeah,
dirty and, like, really showing that on the pitch. Now
yeah.
I, uh, I respect the integrity in your response, and, you heard it here first on Turin Giants.
Hanging in the
Frederic
Louvre, hanging in the
Italian
Louvre.
Man of the Match award.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
me, I mean, look, there were some good performances from a lot of players today. I'm and I think I can make a case for any number of a couple other people. Um, I'm gonna go with Openda because this was his best match, I think,
yeah,
wearing the black and white shirt. I think he showed us why we bought him in the first place with the speed that he has, with the runs that he makes, splitting Roma's back line. Maybe on another day he ends up having multiple goals in this, but his performance was capped off with a nice goal. He showed something that a Vlahovic doesn't bring, that a David doesn't bring to this team, and he's a good weapon if he has some confidence. Uh, but look, I mean, you could all like Bremer. What a difference in having him, right? He was a beast, particularly
yeah,
in that first half. I think Chico ended up playing a decent match, even though at time he is still a very frustrating player. I think Cambiaso, for all of the criticism we throw his way, I mean, the first part of that first half I thought was sloppy, but look, he topped it off with a beautiful assist, and I think he was more commanding in the second half. That shot he had from outside of the box, what a thing of beauty! Like the technicality that went in to strike that the way that he did. I think McKennie had a very nice match. I mean, the assist that he had on the second goal topped that off as well. Kelly performed incredibly
Kelly,
well.
amazing.
Turam wasn't
Kelly,
flat this game either. I mean, Kalulu, I think, was maybe like he he turned it around after like the first third of the game. I thought he was a bit sloppy. And Yildiz, of course, our star boy. I mean, every time he had the ball at his foot, it looked like he was capable of something dangerous. So, like all
yeah,
in all, it's hard to find fault with this performance.
yeah. I really like kudos once again. I'm being repetitive, but Kelly for me, I just this the whole revenge arc is so beautiful for me. And even today because I was thinking, you have that Wesley, you have Dybala who could be very, plays left, maybe right. You never know because we weren't playing with pure man marking in the back. I think that was very obvious. It wasn't pure man marking because Roma's players, especially the wingers, tend to switch it up a lot more, cutting him into the center and things like that. So it was a game where Kelly would have or could have made a lot of mistakes or could have had
Yeah.
taken the better of him, and he didn't. Like I don't know, it was at the end somewhere. He burst through. They called a foul on him, which wasn't one, but he would have went clear on goal. And I don't know why. I just love the guy, the tenacity, the fighting spirit, the never say die mentality. For me, that makes up for so much that he's maybe lacking position wise or in terms of technical ability. But
His
just
mentality is making up for some I don't want to say weaknesses in his game, but just not being at the same
working
level
points.
of just top class, world
Yeah,
class center backs, and he's overperforming. I think what we had expected, which is great to see.
yeah,
So moving to just a couple questions here, we've touched on a lot of them. I think we'll end with one here. Uh, from our buddy Del Piero 109. Do you think the Vlahovic injury was a blessing for this team? Now, we've talked about this on other podcasts, kind of just thinking about the impact of his injury. But now that we've had some matches without him, how do you respond to that?
It's easy in hindsight to say, yeah, this is a good thing to happen because we have Openda, we have David now. But you never know how he would have played that game. If Vlahovic would have played some of the games we played, you never know what impact he could have had. And if he'd have had a positive one, then we were all cheering for Vlahovic now. And we were talking about how fast we can sell either Openda or David. But it's hard to tell. And I honestly feel that if Vlahovic kept putting the performances in of late, then he would have been pulled out of the team by Spalletti. I don't think this is something Spalletti has done because he has no choice.
Yep.
Because you can clearly see that nobody's certain of his spot, especially up front.
Yeah.
Everybody was thinking that David was going to
see
start.
Rotation and
Yeah.
just who has the best
So,
characteristics or who's on a run of form. Yeah.
so it's never in terms of my own. I think people know what how I feel about Vlahovic, so I don't need to expand on that
Yep.
anymore. But it's good to see that, regardless of the Vlahovic situation or not, it's good to see that we just are gaining momentum as a team. And I think if we gain momentum as a team and Vlahovic was part of that team, he would have profited from that too, being a striker. Maybe not in the sense that, an Openda does or a David does in terms of playing minutes. But I think Vlahovic would have been non-detrimental to our team. Let's put it like that. But I'm happy to see Openda evolving, David being a much better player, or seems to be a much better player than we saw a couple of months ago. But as I said, everything takes time, especially when you're forming and molding a team. And there are a lot of guys that we maybe are criticizing that won't be here next year. But the other thing could also happen. A lot of people that we praise right now could be on the thing of leaving Juventus or even underperforming next season. So these are all such difficult things to imagine or to even predict. But I'm just glad at how it works now. And Vlahovic to me is a non-issue.
Yep.
Because once he regains fitness, he won't make the team regardless. Maybe he'll have like a sub or maybe some starting minutes, depending on how we stand on the league. And apart from that, if he wants to leave in June, be my guest, man.
Yeah, at this point, I think we all appreciate that that's a foregone conclusion. We also got an hour and 13 minutes into this without talking about Milik being back in the squad, which doesn't deserve any commentary other than us just chuckling at it. We'll see what.
Well, one thing happened. He came on the pitch, I think Thursday on training, and I don't know who it was, but they went towards him and said the interview is after training. And he said, "What interview? Well, aren't you the journalist of so and so and so?" No, I'm a player here. But it was a show and tell kind of moment. But it was quite nobody's used to Milik, but he's here. We'll see if we can use him. Why not? I mean, he's still on the payroll.
I was at the stadium when he had that Coppa Italia hat trick. I don't even remember who it was, Salernitana or something like that. 2 years ago. But hey, if he can contribute, great. If not, we haven't been missing him really.
No.
Well, I think with that, we're gonna draw this one to a close. Thank you, Frederic. An absolute pleasure just being with you on this one. For everyone who joined us on the YouTube live, thank you for being here with us, especially if you're joining at awkward times of your Saturday night or Sunday morning. We're really grateful for it. Again, if you're listening to us in audio format on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, thank you. For everyone, regardless of what you celebrate and recognize, just I hope you have a good holiday season. We'll be with you, of course, on December 27th for the match against Pisa. So minimally, that will be the next thing we put out. I do have a little treat for everyone. My two good friends in Turin, who I have season tickets next to me at the Allianz, and I'm not making good use of those season tickets this year. But if you've been to a match or at any point over the last couple seasons, you know that Juventus enters the pitch to AC/DC's Thunderstruck. They've been doing that for a number of years now. My friends sent me this video, and Juve put a kind of Christmas spin on it. So we're going to end with this. You can hear some sleigh bells going along with it.
Why?
Some sleigh bells playing in the background. Not overly creative, but always cool to see the perspective
Why?
from the stadium.
Why though? Why?
With that, everyone, Frederic,
It is awesome.
grazie mille. And
Thanks,
as always, fino alla fine, forza Juve.
Parte del pieno, rete del pieno. Pallone con i contadini per Nedved,